Welcome to the James Rice Show, a humorous, entertaining, and sometimes thought-provoking look at teaching and studying abroad. Join the conversation as James guides you through his experiences and provides insights into how to improve your English and how to improve your teaching of English. And now, here's the man you've been waiting for, James Rice.
Coming up on today's episode, a teaching in China scam exposed here on the James Rice Show. Plus, what is Bitcoin? You'll find out. All coming up on the James Rice Show. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the James Rice Show. Welcome to all my students and to all my fellow teachers. Thank you guys for tuning in and supporting us on this podcast. It is a pleasure to be here again with you from Toronto, Canada. I am James. I'm here with our producer, Stephanie. Hello. She's waving a big hello from behind the glass. And we are here broadcasting in over 60 countries around the world. Thank you very much. And I want to say a special shout out to the UK, because you guys have been jumping up all over the James Rice Show. It's taken you a long time, my British friends and UK friends, to find the James Rice Show. And thank you. Thank you for finding us. And it's great to have you on. Of course, we talked a lot about the TOEIC scandal that was going on in the UK, and it's great to have some of your UK listeners tuning in to learn more about that TOEIC scandal, and haven't had any updates on that. So when we do, we'll definitely fill all the listeners in. So tell you guys what's going on, of course. So this week we are talking about a new teaching scam in China. So if you are a teacher out there, or you're thinking maybe teaching in China would be cool, okay, we do have a special episode called Teaching in China. So listen to that episode, because it's got great information about what life is like. Now, this time, what's happening in China is Chinese teacher recruitment agencies. So these are the guys that hire teachers from overseas. They're trying to break the law. Okay, they're trying to break the law here, and they're trying to get teachers over, and you teachers will be the ones in trouble. Okay, not the agencies. It's going to be you, the teachers in China. Remember, China is a communist country, and if you're caught breaking the law there, well, it's not a good thing. And in this political climate, it's really not a good thing. So you want to be, obviously, a bit careful. So what is the scam? All right, so here is the scam. So what is happening is that these Chinese recruiters that are overseas are trying to attract international students. Okay, so you guys out there, or perhaps new teachers who are not, knowledgeable in the way of Chinese teaching English programs. So they're targeting you guys, and they're saying, hey, come to China, okay, for free, okay, for free. You don't have to pay anything. You can come to China. We're going to fly you over to China, and we're going to pay for everything. And you're going to learn about a cultural program. Okay, you can stay for 3 months, or you can stay for 6 months and just enjoy a cultural program. And while you're here, by the way, you're going to volunteer and teach English to some of our community. And we're going to teach you Chinese. And you're going to have a wonderful time. You're going to meet Chinese families. You're going to eat Chinese food. You're going to live in Chinese homestays. And you're going to learn about the Chinese culture. And it's free. Okay. So, first off, it may not be free. All right. Because what they're doing is they're actually charging Chinese families to have lessons with you. So that's where they're making their money. And you are coming over thinking that you're just volunteering, and you are actually teaching English to them. And that's how they're attracting international students and new teachers out there who may be not familiar with it. And so it's very easy in this situation to get a visa, because you can get an M visa or an F visa under a cultural program. This is what is happening in China. So I'm bringing on an expert. All right, our man in China, Colin Goodchild, and we spoke with him a bit earlier, and he's going to talk about this scam and generally what you need to know if you plan on going to teach in China, and what is illegal, because you do not want to be caught doing something illegal in China. That's not the place to be caught doing the illegal things. So Colin Goodchild, our man in China. He's going to come up right now. Stephanie, let's bring up that interview. Welcome, Colin, to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so can you give us some insight on this recruiting scam that's going on in China?
Sure. Well, it's not really all that new, although this is probably a big one, and that's why it's made it to the news. Lots of small training centers will have big promises. They'll say, "Oh, don't worry about that. We'll take care of it," and then they can't. So maybe we should go over the requirements in order to get a teaching visa.
Yeah, that would be great. So what type of visa do they need to teach in China?
They need a Z visa in order to get in order to teach full time.
Okay. And now this cultural program that they're talking about, what visa is that?
Sorry, the cultural? They're. Could you say that again? I'm sorry.
Sorry, the cultural program visa that the Chinese recruitment agencies are trying to entice the teachers to.
Right. So they're making it sound like a working holiday sort of thing.
It's more like a cultural exchange, maybe.
Okay. Well, yeah. Since it's a culture exchange, I've actually never heard of anything like a culture exchange. The only way to work as a teacher in China is on a Z visa. So anything that they're promising with this cultural visa is all a hoax.
Okay, so you're not going to be teaching. What about if they're like an au pair or nannies?
No, absolutely not. And this is really, really strict now in China, where they're passing all of these new regulations where, so in order to be a nanny, in order to have any job here, you kind of have to prove that you have qualifications that a local could not or does not have.
Okay, and so what would be the process if they were going to be, a teacher or wanting to teach in English? What should they expect to go through, an agency or recruitment agency that is, on the up and up?
So you mean like what are the requirements?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've actually got them right in front of me. So you need to be a native English speaker, first and foremost, and you need to be a native English speaker from a very short list of countries, which would be Canada, America, UK, South Africa, Australia, and possibly New Zealand, I think, and that's about it.
Yeah, the big seven, the seven pillars.
Yeah, right. So if you're not a native English speaker, then you need to have, and I'm reading it right here, a bachelor degree or higher in an English-related subject.
Okay.
And it also helps if you have your TESOL or TESOL.
Right.
And I think that's about it. That's the only way you're going to get it if you're a non-native English speaker.
And how long does the visa process last?
So they issue a Z visa for a year, and if your contract goes longer, then you would renew it.
Right.
In order to get it, it can last until it's finalized. It can last months. But you can start working once you have your work permit or your resident something. So
Right.
you need
Okay.
to get about 4 different documents before you're finalized, but you can start working before you have all of those documents.
Now, if I'm in Canada, how long would it take me to get that visa before I can fly over to China?
Well, you wouldn't need everything before you leave Canada.
Oh, really?
You would just need, because you need something called your expert certificate, which is a little booklet that you get, and you get that possibly a few months later. I think you can get it as early as a few weeks. But you wouldn't need that in order to get in the country. You just need your Z visa. Most people won't get this in Canada. They'll come over first, and then they'll apply for all of these things. So it's not unheard of, and it's not unusual to come here on a tourist visa, and then you go back to Hong Kong in order to transfer everything over to a work visa, which I would recommend doing, because then you could sort of suss out the situation.
Right, right. But of course, as a new teacher, you might be a bit nervous to go over there without having the proper Z visa. So they could do it in Canada or in one of the 7 countries, correct?
You could, but in my humble opinion, I would say if you're nervous, to not do that, because if you're nervous about it, then you're locked into a company that, well, you might not like,
Right.
and you're stuck with them for the duration of your contract. You wouldn't want to break a contract here. They can really kind of, well, kick you out of the country for a long time if you do that.
Oh, really? Okay. So if you're going to sign on with a recruitment agency with one of the companies, you are really stuck with that company.
The recruiting agency, no, but the job that you work for,
Right,
whatever
right,
the
the
teaching
company.
position, yeah, you'd be stuck with them.
Wow. Okay. So you want to be careful with that. So you do want to
And,
travel over for a few months to check it out.
yeah, I don't even think you'd need that. Really, just to, I mean, you can pretty much get a feel for things. If they start promising things and you don't see them immediately, if you're the only foreign teacher in the school, well, that's, I mean, do you really want that? And if you're not, then you can talk to the other staff and find out what things are like.
Now, any recruitment agency that is telling you you can teach in China for free, for free meaning, that you don't have to pay anything to the recruitment agency, is incorrect, or they're lying.
They're lying. Yeah.
Okay. And there's no 3 or 6 month teaching opportunities. It's 1 year.
Right now, I haven't heard of any 6 months recently, but I actually was here on a 6 month before, so that is possible.
Okay, so a 6 month work visa is possible.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But it has to be the Z visa.
It has to be a Z.
No M visa, no F visa.
Right. If you get what we call a business visa, and I'm not sure what letter that is, but if you get a business visa, then you can't teach. So you'd have to do something else. Now, it's also not unheard of for them to find some loopholes and call you a recruiter or an instructor of some sorts and hire you as an outside company. But I don't think you're going to get fooled into that. You have to really know your stuff in order to get away with the business visa. You have to start a business, for one.
Yeah, so I mean that's more for business owners or people doing business there, not for a new teacher, wanting
Exactly.
to travel. Yeah.
Right.
So no M, no F, must be a Z, and anybody who's offering it for free, avoid it.
Right. And students can't work here either.
And students cannot work here. If you're an international student, you cannot work here in China.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you very much for helping us out with that, Colin.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care.
Okay. You too.
All right. So thanks, Colin, very much. He was great. So he has a school in China, and he knows his stuff, and you got to get that Z visa. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. All right. So nothing is free. And, it's a cliche. These are idioms. Nothing is free in this world, guys. All right. So if you're going to go to China, do it through legitimate companies and know the visas that you need when you are working overseas. Students, you're not going to be working in China. All right, so Z visa. All right, so let's move on to our show. We've got some other news here happening in the James Rice Show world and James Rice Show family. The Disruptive Education Conference, I was a part of that last November here in Toronto, is happening again. And they're going to be having another Disruptive Education Conference coming up in April. So we're going to get Anesh Daya on the show again to talk to us about that conference and what's going on there, what he's doing. I know they're working really hard on trying to make that a good event. I will also be attending the ICEF in April in Vancouver, the Vancouver workshop, in my official capacity, not as a podcast host, but as many of you know, if you follow the show, I do work at a high school. So here in just outside of Toronto, I work at a high school, and I will be there in my official capacity. And of course, I've met several of you agents and schools that have told me you listen to the James Rice Show, and I'd love to have you guys come on and talk about your show, talk about what you guys are doing, what exciting things you guys are doing. Top 5 listeners this week. Our show is on Spotify. Okay, and usually our show has been dominated by Apple Podcasts, people downloading on Apple Podcasts. But Spotify has really shot up, so that's impressive. Spotify now, a lot of listeners are on Spotify, and still Apple Podcast number 1, but Spotify number 2. And we also have the podcast on YouTube, so there's a few of you listening to YouTube, and of course others are listening on the Stitcher app if you're on an Android phone. That's another popular app. All right, so our top 5 listeners for this week. Number 1, Brazil. Obrigado, my Brazilian friends. You guys still number 1 listener to the James Rice Show, and number 1 in my heart. Number 2, the UK. Yeah, we talked about that at the top of the show, and it's great to have you guys on the show and listening. It's taken you a long time to find us, but glad you found us. Number 3, Canada, of course. Number 4, the US of A. And number 5, hanging in there, our friends in Saudi Arabia. Yeah, so it's great to have those listeners from Saudi Arabia. I've had a lot of former students living, of course, returning to Saudi Arabia, and I've been to Saudi Arabia. I was doing teacher training and curriculum development in Saudi Arabia, so that was a great experience, and I'm glad some of those people I hope, are still listening. We've got some listeners in Jeddah, so that's really nice. Nice to have that international mix. All right. So, Bitcoin. What the heck is Bitcoin? I've been very curious, and you guys may not be so curious. You guys may be thinking, I don't know what Bitcoin is. I don't want to listen to this part of the show. But listen, because it's really fascinating. It's a fascinating interview. You're going to learn a lot. So for students, practice your listening ability. This is lots of new vocabulary. There is a lot of new vocabulary that we're going to be discussing. For teachers, we do talk a little bit about some educational resources and how to teach Bitcoin and what life is like using Bitcoin. And you could even use this podcast interview as part of your class to get students to think about discussing and talking about Bitcoin. Now, we have our guest, our Bitcoin expert, is Misha Yurchenko. Now, he lives in Tokyo, Japan, and he is actually living in Japan on Bitcoin. So he doesn't have money like us. He doesn't walk around with money. He's living on Bitcoin. Well, I guess he is, but he'll explain it. He does a better job of explaining it. But he's getting paid and living on Bitcoin. Not 100%, but I think quite a large percentage of his life is on Bitcoin, which is fascinating. So you got to listen to that. Now, he has written a book called Bullish on Bitcoin. And what he's done is he's gone out and interviewed a number of Bitcoin CEOs for this book. So he's quite an expert. He's quite knowledgeable on Bitcoin. And we're lucky to have him, and I hope you guys find it as fascinating as I found it. All right, coming up next, what is Bitcoin?
Hi, James Rice students. It's me, Cara Mund, Miss America 2018. Now, learning a second language is never easy. It can be difficult and it's sometimes frustrating, but I want you to keep listening to Teacher James and keep working hard. Never give up.
The Study It textbooks are the first ever completely digital and interactive English as a second language textbook series. Once downloaded, these textbooks do not require a Wi-Fi connection. Students and teachers can use them anywhere, anytime. Used in over 40 schools, universities, and NGOs worldwide. Study It is the future of English teaching. Visit www.studyitbooks.com for more information.
Welcome back to the James Rice Show. I am pleased to welcome Tokyo-based author Misha Yurchenko, who recently published Bullish on Bitcoin. Welcome to the show, Misha.
Thanks, James. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so now I have to admit, I know very little about Bitcoin. So can you speak to me like a 9-year-old child and explain what is Bitcoin?
Sure thing, James. Yeah. I've been involved in the cryptocurrency and Bitcoin space for about 2.5 years now, and literally every day there's something new that I learn. So I think if people are really interested in cryptocurrencies, they should definitely not feel too bad about not understanding the technical aspect of it. I'm still, again, learning every day. So to answer your question, so Bitcoin, I can explain that first, and then a little bit about the technology behind Bitcoin, which is called blockchain. So cryptocurrency is just essentially a form of digital money. And the biggest difference and the most exciting difference for a lot of people is that the transaction does not require a central authority or a bank or PayPal. So normally if I send you money, we have to withdraw money from the bank, or we have to wire money through a bank, or there's a gatekeeper like PayPal that is controlling or potentially taking a fee from our transaction. So with cryptocurrencies, that is no longer an issue, and there is no intermediary. So that is one big value proposition, and one of the most interesting parts about cryptocurrency. That is, it is decentralized and does not require a central authority.
So it's just transferring basically digital numbers to a digital account? I mean, what is being transferred? I mean, it's like a video game. Like I get points on my scorecard.
No. So it's a good question. So essentially, this is still all run on the internet, and basically, there's a large network of computers that talk to each other. And so every time, so if you want to send money to me, if you want to send a transaction, it's a string of numbers, and that code or that string of numbers is sent to that network of computers. And those computers, using all sorts of mathematical algorithms, they come to an agreement and say, yes, this transaction is valid, and they put the transaction through, and they allow you to send the money to me. So instead of a bank, it's all run on mathematical algorithms that are used to determine whether or not the transaction is fake or not. And up until today, Bitcoin has never been hacked in the same way that a bank, has been, if their passwords are leaked or whatever. You've had a few different cases in history where that has happened. That has never happened in Bitcoin. So from that perspective, it's extremely secure, and it basically virtually cannot be hacked. Now, the challenge is, us humans, as soon as we create an invention like this that is really exciting and has the potential to change the finance industry, we take this technology and then we create a website and then we centralize it and give all of our money to a large centralized authority. So a lot of the negativity and a lot of the hacking going on in the industry is, it's largely because of the centralization of cryptocurrencies, which is coming from websites where people are storing their money rather than the actual technology. So something we were talking about before the call with the Canadian.
Just to explain to the students and listeners out there, there was a very big story here in Canada about a Bitcoin entrepreneur, a businessman who died, and he had apparently locked people out of their money, over $175 million Bitcoin worth of dollars. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it what's it called?
You can just call it. I mean, there's I think it was about $250 million Canadian dollars, 250 Canadian dollars, or 190 million US dollars worth of cryptocurrencies.
Okay, so I mean, you said the money is safe. There's no hackers. It's different. But here in Canada, we have this huge case, and it's getting a lot of media attention. About this guy who, on his laptop, has control over $100 or $200 million. How can we feel safe with that, or can you explain a bit about this situation?
Sure thing. Yeah, it's an unfortunate event. I actually have a couple of friends in Canada that had money on this exchange, so they're not very happy right now. So this is actually a really bizarre story, because every day, and this happened just a couple weeks ago, but the story keeps getting stranger because the president or the founder of this company was actually going under a different name, so he wasn't using his real name, which is strange. And then some people are speculating that he faked his death to steal the money. So there's a lot of strange twists. We don't really know what happened, but the point of the story is, yes, that this one individual basically took everyone's money and ran off. And unfortunately, this, Bitcoin has been around for a little over 10 years now. And unfortunately, this has happened a handful of times. There's been a lot of large cryptocurrency exchanges that have been hacked. And an exchange is just a place where you can go to buy and sell cryptocurrencies. Now, the problem is when you go register on an exchange, you are giving this exchange access to your private information. So it is no longer centralized. And unfortunately, because the industry is so new, there are a lot of bad actors and there are a lot of scams. And unfortunately, things like this happen. On the other hand, there are a lot of regulators that are working on this, and there's a few exchanges that are legitimate. So the largest cryptocurrency exchange in the world, one of the largest, is called Coinbase. And Coinbase is an American exchange, and similar to a bank, they have insurance. So even if FDIC insurance, so even if you were to lose or they were to lose that money, you would be insured to get that money back. They're also 100% legal, fully regulated. They're working closely with the government. So there's a lot of good stuff happening in the industry, and there are a lot of legitimate exchanges. But unfortunately, there are still some bad actors. So we have to be careful.
So now, to understand it, basically, I would be getting an account, like a Bitcoin account, and I would have
Yeah.
a digital wallet, and
Sure. Yeah.
I would buy things using Bitcoin. Like, can I buy your book using Bitcoin?
That's funny you ask. Well, actually, my my book is available on Amazon, and Amazon doesn't actually accept Bitcoin.
Except Bitcoin.
So
Come on, Misha, you're selling the Bitcoin book. You gotta have the.
I know, right? Well. No, to answer your question, yeah, you can buy my book on with Bitcoin, except you have to go on my website. So,
Okay.
The challenge, yeah.
So how much is the Bitcoin? How much is it on your book? How much does it cost your book on your website using Bitcoin? Is it the same price as Amazon?
Yeah. So it's I think it's a little bit cheaper. So it's about $4. It's about $4 on my site, and then I think it's about $5 on Amazon. So that's like 0.0015 Bitcoin.
Okay.
Something like that. Yeah. So yeah, like you described it quite well. So you essentially have a wallet that you can download on your computer or your phone, and then you can download a wallet right now. I can download a wallet, and then I can send you money directly to your wallet with practically zero transaction fee, and then nobody can come and take that money away from you. So it's a very powerful tool from that perspective, and there's a lot of lot of different ways you can use that, but living in
so
go ahead.
How do I get the Bitcoin? Do I have to pay like $100 cash to get a certain amount of Bitcoin?
Yeah, sure. So there's different ways to do it. So one is the easiest way to do it would be to go on an exchange, again, a legitimate exchange like Coinbase that is insured. You can go on there, and then you can actually just send USD or yen or euros, whatever your local currency is, and you can just send that from your bank account or from PayPal to this exchange, and then convert that to a cryptocurrency. You can convert that to US dollars, and then convert the USD to Bitcoin, and then you have your Bitcoin. You can do whatever you want with it. So you have to get it from your bank to the exchange first. That's the first step.
So I understand. So what is the advantage? Why don't I just pay with my credit card? Is there a discount if I'm using Bitcoin? What are some of the advantages other than saving on the financial transactions? I get that, but are there any other advantages?
Sure. So I think one of the biggest use cases right now that we've seen so far with Bitcoin is that it has no inherent inflation. So it's actually a deflationary currency, which means for the US, it's not as huge of a deal for us because our banking system is relatively stable. We can wake up tomorrow and our banks are probably not going to disappear. We're going to be able to withdraw money, but in many countries like China or India or Venezuela or Greece, as we saw not too long ago, there's less trust in banks, there's less trust in government, and there are a lot of situations where you might, a country wakes up one day and the currency has inflated to a point where it's worthless, or they don't have the government has taken money away from people, and unfortunately that does happen. So I think the biggest use case for Bitcoin currently, I think a lot of people would agree, is as a store of value for developing nations that do not have stable governments.
I see.
So it's not really great to buy coffee.
Right. Understood. Now, is it good? Is there an exchange rate rather that is in play? Because as I understand it, if you have US dollars, you could buy perhaps more Bitcoin, but the Bitcoin, there would be no exchange rate. Would that be correct? So if
go ahead.
If I use Canadian dollars to buy something in the US, it's going to cost me like 30% more But if I have the Bitcoin, there won't be any exchange rate. Is that correct?
Sure. Yeah. So that assumes that there's a certain market. So yeah, if you're able to, if there's a market of goods and services where you can pay in Bitcoin, then yeah, it's essentially a global worldwide currency that has the stability of well, currently it does not have the stability of the USD or other global currencies, but the goal is for it to act as a worldwide currency and eventually serve as a reference point for prices and exchanges. So not taxed, used as electronic cash, and used as a wallet for people that do not have bank accounts. So there's I don't remember the exact number, but it's something like 2 billion people in the world do not have a bank account. And one of the reasons for that is simply, there many people are living on under $10 a day, and so banks do not want to open up accounts for people that don't have that very much money. And so one interesting phenomenon you see, actually this is outside of cryptocurrencies, but if you go to Indonesia, which is somewhere I traveled to a few months ago, there are many people, millions of people that do not have bank accounts. And one of the reasons is infrastructure, because of the there's thousands of islands, so it's quite hard to set up banks there. The other reason is just the kind of what I mentioned before. The average income is quite low, so banks don't want to support those people. So what you have is a really large private company that came in called Gojek, and this is actually a startup from Indonesia, and they created an app that originally started out as like a sharing service for mopeds and bicycles, and then people were able to kind of share their motorcycles, kind of like an Uber for motorcycles, I guess. And then they didn't have bank accounts, so they were just accepting their local currency through this app that they set up. And so this was several years ago, and it's snowballed into a really massive company now. So it's one of the largest, most successful startups in Indonesia. And there's tens of thousands of people that have the Gojek app now, but they don't have bank accounts. But they use it as essentially as a bank account, and they use it as a wallet. And so that is not even that's not even a cryptocurrency, but it goes to show that there is this problem in developing countries, and there are people solving it in different ways. And cryptocurrency is definitely one of the potential solutions to that.
Interesting. What are some of the other goods and services you could buy with your Bitcoin? Like, what have you bought?
Yeah, sure. So I've actually so one of the ways that I use Bitcoin is well, to be honest, I've actually been living on Bitcoin for about 2 years. So
really?
I pretty much, yeah.
In Tokyo,
yeah.
I've been living on Bitcoin.
Yeah, so I might be a strange case, but so I've been trading cryptocurrencies, and I've taken Bitcoin, and then I can't actually buy that many things with Bitcoin because not that many places accept it. So that's kind of the chicken and the egg problem.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure.
There are places that you can buy pizza. There's a few restaurants where you can buy pizza and beer. There's a few. Actually, the largest.
So you're living on pizza and beer in Japan.
I'm living on pizza and beer in Japan and paying for it with Bitcoin. Yeah.
And paying with Bitcoin.
But there's also very large electronic stores in Japan. Some of the largest electronic stores, and they accept cryptocurrencies also. So I don't know how many people are actually paying with cryptocurrencies, but there are companies and businesses that are starting to accept it. So
what about your rent or your everyday living expenses? Are you using Bitcoin?
Yes. No. So basically, I'll just convert that. I'll convert that from Bitcoin to yen.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So
So,
in those cases, I can't. Yeah,
but what are you selling on the exchange? Like, how are you getting your Bitcoin?
yeah. So there's different strategies. So for example, one of my one of my jobs, I've been a freelance writer for the past 2.5 years, and so kind of like my book, I accept payments for the book in cryptocurrency. I accept tips also on my blog and on other websites. So that's one method, and then on the actual exchange, so I'm trading different cryptocurrencies. So for example, it's just like trading the stock market. If a cryptocurrency goes down in price, I might buy that cryptocurrency and sell it at a higher price and then make a profit. Very simply. So the world of trading cryptocurrencies is still very, very new, and there's a lot of opportunity because it is so new, and it's extremely volatile. So I've enjoyed learning about that, but it is quite risky. So I don't recommend it for everyone.
Right, right. Now, you do recommend kind of people taking a long view. Can you explain that kind of philosophy?
Yeah, sure. So I've talked to a lot of different blockchain startups and CEOs
Oh, wait, wait,
in
wait,
the
wait.
past few.
What is a blockchain?
Sorry, I didn't explain
You mentioned that a
that.
couple of times. What is a blockchain before we get into the long view?
Sure, sure. So you can think about it. So the blockchain is um, one of the pieces of technology that is underneath Bitcoin. And cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum, there's over 2,000 different cryptocurrencies, and a lot of these cryptocurrencies go up and down in price. And I think a lot of the image people have is kind of from that side, right? The get rich quick kind of schemes and all that. But actually, the most interesting part about cryptocurrencies is the underlying technology, which is called blockchain. And blockchain, all that is, it's a way of recording information onto lots of different devices all through the internet. And so there's different sorts of blockchains that are storing different types of information. You can have one blockchain that records money, or you can have one blockchain that records identities, your driver's license, or there's another blockchain that stores music or
So
negotiates.
they're basically different businesses online doing different services for the Bitcoin industry.
Yeah, so it's fundamentally, you can have a blockchain for anything. So from that sense, you have thousands and thousands of startups that are building their business on top of this technology. So
You
yes,
could
that's
have
correct.
someone could be creating the next Amazon with Bitcoin right now.
Yeah, potentially. So if I think the challenge there is Amazon's already so big, right? It's really hard to displace such a giant.
Well,
And
they said that about, Sears and Walmart. I mean, Amazon defeated everybody. So somebody will come along and defeat Amazon. And maybe it's through
yeah,
Bitcoin. Maybe it's through Bitcoin in 20 years. Yeah, that's interesting.
yeah, exactly. So like you said, maybe it's 20 years from now. Maybe the Amazon, the Google, the Facebook of blockchain that hasn't even been created. It hasn't even been imagined. So I
Exactly.
think it's much longer term.
So that's why we got to take the long view. That's what you're saying. This is something that's going to develop over how long? How many years? What do you see for the future?
Well, so from the people I spoke to, they're entrepreneurs that are building their companies on top of this. There's a lot of challenges, right? There's challenges in the finance industry. There's challenges with the government, the regulations. There's the challenge of.
I'm sure the government wants their money. Yes.
Exactly,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So making this user friendly, because right now I can just open up my app on my Facebook Messenger or Skype or whatever, and I don't know how the technology works. Like I can't explain it to you, right? I can't tell you how an airplane works. I can't tell you how I can't explain all the details of how the internet works, right? But I use these technologies every day, and we have to get to a point where you're not thinking about, is this blockchain or not blockchain? Like it's just a different programming language, just a different way to build something online.
Right.
And we have to get to a point where it's completely seamless and not something that we're thinking about. And I don't know how long that will take. It could be 5 years. It could be, it could be 20 years. But I do think there needs to be one or two big players and big services that make this easier for everybody. And right now we don't really have anything like that. So it's still too early to tell.
I'm kind of assuming that the demographic of the people using Bitcoin is kind of in their 20s, the millennials. Would that be correct?
Yes and no. I think in developed countries, yes, because again, there's not a huge use case for buying coffee with Bitcoin, and people like myself, and I know a lot of freelancers use Bitcoin and accept payments in Bitcoin because they don't want to use a centralized platform that takes the fee. So there's definitely different situations like that, and those people are all different ages. But I think if you're in the Philippines, and there's a lot of actually Filipino workers here in Japan, for example, and one of the ways that they send money back home from Tokyo to the Philippines to Manila is through PayPal or through Western Union, which is just terrible. And these companies take anywhere from like a 3 to 10% cut from what you send. And maybe that doesn't sound like a big deal to some people, but if you're sending your $500 salary to your family back home, and and they're cutting out $30 or $40, like that's significant for a lot of people. So I think there are a lot of young people, middle-aged people that are working abroad and sending money back from developed countries to developing countries. So maybe from the US to Africa, countries in Africa, or maybe from Japan to the Philippines, and various others. So that's certainly a big use case for the transactions and the value of Bitcoin.
Fascinating. Now, for the teachers that are listening to the show, where can they get information and resources to create lesson plans around explaining this to their students?
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned something in a few minutes ago. You asked me to explain Bitcoin as if you were a 9-year-old, and it's actually a great way to do it, because if you, not just for Bitcoin, but for any new technology or anything new that you want to learn, if you just go to Google and type in blockchain for kids or physics for kids, there's actually a lot of great resources. So lisk.io, lisk.io has a lot of great information for people starting out in Bitcoin. And there's blockchain basics and Bitcoin basics, and there's a lot of great YouTube videos. I can recommend one person on YouTube who's been in Bitcoin for a very long time, and he's a developer and a speaker. So he's very, very good at explaining these things, much better than I am. And his name is Andreas, Andreas, Andreas. So if you just type in Andreas and Bitcoin, then you'll find his channel on YouTube. So that's where I would recommend to start.
Well, it's fascinating stuff, Misha. Thank you so much for coming on today, and tell us about your book and where can we get it, and your website or anything like that.
Yeah, sure. So my website is just my name, MISHAYURCHENKO.me. So you can go there, and all my articles are on there, and you can also find a link to my book. And the book is really for anyone that's getting started in Bitcoin or has experience in Bitcoin that wants to know, what they can do and what the future might hold. So, it's really, not just for beginners, I would say. There's also some pretty deep and technical information, but you can always skip that part. And I think you can find, there's something for everybody in the book that's interested. So you can check it out on my website.
Well, it has certainly been an education for me. I got to admit, Misha, I was a little bit nervous about having you on, and I told you that before. Like, I don't know anything, but you've really helped to explain, and I've got a better grasp of it. So I'm a bit curious now about it. That's always dangerous.
Yeah. No, I think the best way to get started, obviously, to read and watch videos, and I think it's really easy to be skeptical about something, especially in the media environment that we have. There's always a new article about something, and it's easy to make an opinion, but it's much harder to do your own research. And so I would recommend going out there, downloading a wallet, spending your first $10 and getting some Bitcoin, seeing how it works, and then then you can decide for yourself.
All right. Well, we'll definitely give it a try. And can I reach out to you again if there's more Bitcoin stories?
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, James. Appreciate it.
Have you subscribed to James's newsletter? When you subscribe, you will receive a free Study It ESL textbook. Visit www.thejamesriceshow.com for more information and join today.
All right, welcome back to the James Rice Show. That was fascinating, wasn't it? That was a fascinating discussion. Now, we talked a little bit about the Canadian company that was, the guy was, we don't know what happened to him. He died, and money from the Bitcoin has disappeared, and nobody knows where he is. And just an update, as of right now, when we're producing the podcast, he's still missing. he's still out there. So he could be dead, which is what everybody says. He could be alive, but nobody knows. Nobody knows. So there's millions of dollars somewhere, and he's taken, and it's gone. Now, Stephanie has reminded me, my God, it's Oscar weekend, and I haven't told anybody what my predictions were for the Oscars coming up. Now, we do produce the show on Sundays, and it goes out on Mondays. So I don't know who's won the Oscars. So I got to make my prediction. So you're going to be able to listen and say James is right or James is wrong. As you know, I'm a big movie buff. And of course, I've been a big fan of A Star is Born because they came to Toronto. I was very lucky to meet Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. And of course, I had an interview with Sam Elliott, and Sam Elliott, he's actually nominated for Best Supporting Actor, and it was too noisy, and you can't hear the quality. So it was a good interview, though. It was good. I really wanted to play it for you guys on the podcast, but next time I gotta get better. I'm not used to interviewing, big celebrities like this. So I am a big fan of Star is Born. Just put my bias out there. I hope they win for my personal, satisfaction, because they were incredibly nice in Toronto. Especially Bradley Cooper he was amazing. He took photos and met with everybody. He was just a really great guy. So, but I don't think it's the best picture. I got to be honest. I don't think it's the best picture. In my mind, Bohemian Rhapsody, the Queen picture, and I've spoken about it before. I do have some problems with it. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but there are a few factual issues there that bother me a little bit after watching it. But it is a great film, and it is really well done. So I gotta say, Bohemian Rhapsody. Now, I'm going to say Black Klansman by Spike Lee is kind of a dark horse in my mind. It could win. I've been thinking about it a lot, Black Klansman or Bohemian Rhapsody. And, it was a good movie, Black Klansman. And I believe Spike Lee is due. And I would vote for him as best director. He may win Best Director, and Bohemian Rhapsody may win the Best Picture. So watch for that. See if I'm right on that. I got to say, Rami Malek from Bohemian Rhapsody, absolutely the best. The best performance of the year. And I'm really hoping for Lady Gaga. I'm going to pick Lady Gaga. You know, it was a good role. She did a great job for A Star Is Born. But, you know, Glenn Close, I think, may also win. But I'm going with Lady Gaga. Putting it out there, Lady Gaga. And, for supporting actor and supporting actress, you never know who's going to win those ones. So the big ones, Best Picture, again, Bohemian Rhapsody. And Best Actor, Rami Malek, Bohemian Rhapsody, and Lady Gaga. I'm going with it's all music. I'm going with all music. But Spike Lee for Director. You heard it here first. Spike Lee. It's his time, I believe. Also, there is a Canadian movie out there I'm cheering for. I forgot to mention, oh my gosh, Bao. B-A-O, Bao. It's so good. It's such a funny, it's an animated short film, and it's made by a Toronto filmmaker, and it's so amazing. And I hope she wins, because it's a great film. Wow, Stephanie, this is one of the longest episodes we've ever done on our podcast. I'm talking way too much. I'm going to get into trouble. Thank you guys. As always, I hope you enjoyed this show as much as we did making it. It was a lot of fun, a lot of great information for everyone. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you, and have a great week. We'll come back next week, and I think on next week's episode, we've got a special guest coming up. And I'm not going to spoil it. I'll save it. All right, guys. Have a great week, everybody. Thanks for listening to our little podcast here. And remember, be crazy.
Thanks for listening to The James Rice Show. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter and send us your questions or comments at www.thejamesriceshow.com.